One of the easiest ways to get materials for scrap sculptures is bikes. So many people have got one rotting away in the garage or in the shed. And for my next sculpture, it is the perfect thing. So let's have a look and see what I want to use and how I'm going to use it. This sculpture is going to be foxgloves. And to make that, I need tubes with lots of different diameters. So the frame sections here can work for the bottom part of the flower. The chainstay sections at the back can be the flower as it works its way up to the top. The handlebars, the seat tube, so many different tube widths and sizes, it works perfectly for this kind of sculpture. But I'm going to need a lot more than just one bike. I've got 5 bikes here, one up on the bench and another in the van. There's plenty of materials to be getting on with. So I'm going to go through, process up all these bikes, get them cut up. Let's do it.
Old bikes can be so easy to get hold of. A post on a local Facebook page and you'll more than likely get a few people who'll be more than happy to get rid of a rusty old bike. I got these ones from a local charity called On Your Bike. I'll explain a bit more about them in a minute.
There we go, that is 5 bikes, all the frames cut up and kind of sorted into the rough sizes. So we've got the thicker ones here, thicker tubes that will be cut up into sections for the bottom of the flower, and then working our way up to the really thin ones like that for right up at the top. I need to go through all of that, cut off any of the sort of tabs, like the brake tabs, that sort of thing, and then all the paint needs to be stripped off of it.
I picked these bikes up from a local charity called On Your Bike. I wanted to give them a little shout out because I like what they do and they let me have the bikes that were beyond repair. They take old bikes and refurbish them to sell. But not just that, they help people who are going through a hard time in life, be that mental health issues, ex-service personnel, long-term unemployed. And they give them purpose and skills by running workshops on how to fix and refurbish bikes. Having a purpose in life is so important, and it is very easy to fall into a rut without any idea of how to get out.
That's all the tabs cut off of all these sections and ground back just so it's all straight pieces of tube now. Next section, all the paint's got to come off. I'm going to get covered in dust from this, so the mask stays on the entire time. These are the best way I've found for removing the paint without damaging the metal underneath. It's like a rubbery nylon disc or something. It's specifically for removing rust and paint. So I'm going to go all the way through all of this, and then we can start making it actually look like a foxglove.
With removing the paint, I've tried a small shot blasting cabinet, but it was utterly useless. I think if I make these again, I'll end up taking the whole frames to someone who can just shot blast the lot before I mess about with them.
I'm going to have to change plan on this one. This is taking far too long to strip these. I've been going for about an hour and I've stripped 6 lengths of tube. It's just going to take far too long. I've used up the first stripping disc already. Anyway, I need to find a new way to do it. There's no real reason why I have to strip the paint off. Because each of these lengths of tube are going to get cut down to size and then forged using the blowtorch to get it all into the right shape. The paint's going to burn off anyway. So as long as I've got the extractor there, I don't really see the issue with it. So I'm going to go that route. But before I do that, I need a stem. So let's grab a piece of rebar, do that, and then I'll come back to the tubes and start working through it.
When I went to cut the stem, I very nearly used the angle grinder with a slitting disc, but no guard. I learnt my lesson with this a few years ago when a disc shattered and I almost lost the top of my knuckle. I'm not always the best with health and safety, but that's one thing I don't mess about with. To make the individual flowers for the foxglove, I need to cut the different frame sections with diagonal cuts on the ends to allow them to be shaped later on in the process.
We've got loads of those bicycle frame tubes cut up. So we go from the thickest, which is that one, to the thinnest, which is that one. And obviously the lengths are slightly different as it's working its way down. So start off at something like 8 centimeters, 7, 6, and then down to 4 on the smaller ones. What I need to do next is get these ready to weld onto the stem. So where the hole is on the back of each tube, that needs filling in. So I'll use a nut to fill that in. Then there'll be some metal bar, goes onto the nut. That can then be welded onto the stem. And then the end of all the flowers needs to be forged with the blowtorch to get that to the shape I want.
Rather than showing every single flower being made, probably near 100, I decided to just show a couple of the different sizes here, I also made a mistake at this point that I didn't realise until a little later. Have a guess, see if you can tell what it is.
I've got loads of the flowers prepped now. So that's the smallest ones. Next one's up, next one's up, next one's up. I put them all together like that, so you can get the idea of how it's going to go once it's on the stem, going from the largest one up to the smallest one. I've only made foxgloves a couple of times before, and I get a little bit apprehensive at this point in case I get it wrong. It's all adjustable, you know, it's metal, you cut it off and re-weld it if it looks wrong. So these are going to go on sort of like that, and then gradually building the way up with the smaller ones, so it'll taper up to the top and hopefully look really good. I can be fairly sporadic with bits and miss some out here and there because that's the way it is in nature. I do tend to fill out all the way around up to the top a bit more than an actual foxglove. An actual foxglove has most of the flowers on one side, which I would assume is the side facing the sun. Because I want this to look good all the way around, I'm going to put lots of flowers all the way up. Let's do it.
And here's the mistake in 3, 2, 1, and I just realised.
Just realised I've completely missed an entire step out. Let's see if I can show you. Okay, all looks good, yeah. And then when you look down from the top, see that at the bottom of the nut and at the bottom of the tube? I haven't filled that in with weld. Completely missed the entire step on every single one of them. Well, at least I realise now. I'll see if I can fill them in place. If not, I'm going to have to cut all these off and redo it. I won't waste your time showing you that. I'll crack on and do it, and then we'll come back when I can weld them back on. Luckily, I've managed to fill in all those sections without having to cut them all off, so I've saved a good bit of time there. Gone back through all the other pieces and filled in the backs on all of those, so it's all done properly now. Now, let's crack on and turn this into a foxglove.
The two most frustrating things about this part of creating the foxgloves were A, making sure the camera was in the right place and I didn't get in the way of it too much, and B, the extractor fan. The extractor is such a pain to get into the right place, so if any of the about 300 people that watch my videos works for a company that wants to sponsor me with a mobile welding fume extractor, let me know. In all seriousness, this is a fun part of creating the sculpture, because after all the prep, it finally begins starting to look like a foxglove. The next stage really transforms it though.
Starting to look like foxgloves now. All the individual flowers are on. I might add a few more to the top still, but we'll see how it goes. What I need to do now is work on each individual one of these to give them the shape of the foxglove. Now, the way that each of these individual ones are, it's just a round tube that's cut on the slant. Now the foxglove flowers are kind of squeezed in from the side, and then the ends of these kind of bend down a little bit. So what I need to do is get the blowtorch out, heat up the end of each of these individual pieces. Use this, which is just a thick piece of rebar, and I'll go round like this to flare the end out a little bit to shape it, and then get a pair of pliers on it and shape it a little bit more with that. But I've got to do that on every single one of these. So let's do that, and then it will look like foxgloves.
I'm on to the final stages now, where the sculpture really comes to life. Going through each of these individual flowers to shape them so they look more natural, and less like bits of bicycle, is something I really enjoy and lose track of time while I'm doing it. Talking of losing track of time, these foxgloves have taken so much longer than the last ones I did. It goes like that sometimes, and things fight you along the way. You just have to keep going and know it'll turn out okay.
I need some leaves to go on the bottom of the foxgloves now, so I'm going to jump on the computer, get them designed up for the CNC Plasma. Once they're cut, jump straight over, weld them onto some stems and get them all shaped up with the blowtorch.
If you're in a position where you're just getting started out in making metal art, or you're looking to progress, my number one tip after getting the obvious welder and angle grinder is to get an oxypropane setup. It's a literal game changer, and you'll wonder how you ever manage without it. I use it on every single sculpture.
Leaves and cleanup are finished, so that's a hell of a lot of progress. I thought I'd just show how much of a mess the workshop's in, because I've just been dealing with these materials, and I've just sort of launched everything everywhere. Just need to get these Foxgloves welded onto the gates now. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment, let me know what you think. I'll get this welded on and I'll show you the finished sculpture.